I have been looking forward to today for many weeks, and Monica Huntsberry is joining us. She is an advisor for RevelEleven and also has been a phenomenal host for us as well. And she's here to talk about something very important to her, which is leaving. She left a 25-year corporate career, began a journey to explore the emotional process of leaving. She conducted interviews with many women, and her research has led her to talk about career and life transition, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you, Joni. It's great to be here, as always, with the RevelEleven community.
And I know you're going through some transitions yourself right now, and maybe you could just talk about what's happening for you before we get started.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I'm based in Seattle, and my oldest son, who's 26, is moving tomorrow back to LA. And we were joking about how, here I think I'm an expert on the topic of transition and how this one is really crushing me. So maybe there's more to learn.
Whether you're writing about it and it's your passion, or if it's happening to you in person. Yeah. So thank you, Monica. Take it away.
Thank you. And, first and foremost, one of my key objectives today is to tell you that I am not the expert that you are. And the purpose here is to help create awareness for you and in yourself about what it is that you really want. Sometimes the choice to stay is the right one, and sometimes that can be a hard choice. And sometimes the choice to leave is the right choice, and that can be the hard one as well. But you are the only one equipped to make that decision for you. And so today I plan to share some tools that you can use to gain awareness and clarity if you're noodling with a decision of, whether it's time to stay or go or make a big career shift, as well as some tips for how to manage through the transition process, which isn't always easy. And hopefully those are tips that you can apply not only to career transitions, but to life transitions. Just to let you know, the work I plan to share with you today is really comes from two bodies of work. First, my own experience. I have left many things, but 5 years ago, I left a corporate career where I had spent 25 years in what many would call an extremely successful corporate run. I became a vice president in my 20s. I traveled the country. I led teams. I was in leadership roles. I was the primary and often sole provider for my family in Southern California. So I was able to earn and work and achieve. But there were many times during that 25-year corporate stint where I was unhappy or burnout, and I would leave jobs or even organizations, at the peak or the height of what was often a tremendous career run, searching for something else. And so when I finally chose to leave corporate to pursue some creative desires, I really struggled with the leaving process. And so I began a quest to interview other women on the topic of leaving. And I interviewed over 55 women. And today I'm going to be drawing from the experience of the women who left careers. And there were many, because I do think that we learn from stories. And one of the beautiful things about RevelEleven is that we are all connected through stories and through each other. So I'm going to ask you to participate as well. And if you feel inclined, just so you know, this is recorded, but the chat is not recorded or shared. So you're very in a safe place here if you want to share any thoughts in the chat. I am curious to hear how many of you are either in the process of making a transition or are thinking about making a transition in the next 12 months. I would be curious to know that. So please feel free to put that in the chat if you're inclined. And as we begin, I want to share a little bit about some of the highlights from just a few of the dozens of women I spoke to about a career shift or transition. One was Elise. She was early in her marketing career, age 32 and single. She was working for a top marketing agency in the UK, a coveted role, but what she described as a toxic environment. The expectations were constantly shifting. passive aggressive behavior from boss and colleagues. There were threats. It was a game of comparison and constantly walking on eggshells. She shared with me, I basically became a shadow of myself because I never knew where I stood. Like, how many of us can relate to that, right? And she left to start her own business in home healthcare, and she loves being her own boss and doing impact-centered work. The next is Nancy, a marketing executive for a top CPG brand on a rapid growth trajectory and at the height of her career at age 43. Yet she dreaded going into work. The politics of the workplace drained her. Her purpose was unclear. She didn't feel as if she was pursuing her passion. It was 2020, during the prime of the pandemic. She had 2 young children and was the sole financial provider for her family. She left without another job and found what she referred to as her dream job just 60 days later. She shared that overcoming her fears that maybe this was the best it was ever going to be, and she needed to accept it, and instead forging a way to a more abundant and vibrant career and life. Last, Heidi, a real estate broker, age 53. She spent 30 years building a client base, was the primary provider for her family, and also at the pinnacle of her career, earning well into a 7-digit income, but consumed by stress and expectation of clients and a changing marketplace. She left the city and her career to move to the mountains. She is currently exploring opening a coffee shop. She shared she is living in the smallest and most remote space that she has ever lived in her entire life. And her friends and family continue to comment that they have never seen her so happy and free. There were dozens of others I spoke to. These are just a few. Lawyers, oncologists, C-suite, project managers, sales leaders, analysts, you name it. And there were some common themes and situations that they were experiencing. They had the same question for me and for themselves. Do I have permission to leave the career I built and thought I wanted? Do I have permission to put myself first? Can I walk away from stable income, insurance, benefits, security? Shouldn't I just be happy with what I have? It's more than most. What they didn't say, but was implied to me through those questions, is the ... even if it's at the sacrifice of my own health and well-being. Because a lot of the pressure of wanting to leave, but forcing themselves to stay, was creating a toll. So I just want to take a minute and ask, and I want to also look at the chat. We have more to cover here, but and see if you can relate to any of that. If anybody has any questions or comments, anything standing out.
So I'll read a couple of these. So Heidi said, beginning a transition from a 26-year stint as a freelancer to an employee. That's a significant change and transition, having been self-employed myself for many years. Tisha, I feel like I'm always in transition, either new leaders, new dynamics, or now a new job. So many comments. Laura, I just made a transition, but would like to think about it differently in the future. So many people can relate to what you're talking about, Monica.
Thank you, Joni, and thank you everyone for commenting. You're absolutely in the right place to have this conversation. And I think so often, we are conditioned to just push through it. And then, okay, so I left my job, going on to next, and you focus on what's next and you focus on the positive. And I think we do have to accept and reflect on, what a big shift means, what transition means, and also what the role of self is in the equation when you're making a decision that impacts others, right? Because most of the time, if we're providers, if we're women, we're taking care of others. And so our decisions don't just impact ourselves, they impact others. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of these emerging themes and what played out in this body of research and work I did. First of all, there was this theme that women especially were afraid of choosing wrong. There was this big fear of, what if I choose wrong? What if I make the wrong choice? What if I regret leaving? What if I regret staying? There was a tension between the responsibility they felt to others and the desires they felt for self. They were existing in systems that were not built for them and trying to make do. They didn't feel valued or heard. They felt guilt that they had so much, or something that somebody else may have wanted or aspired and not reached, but yet it wasn't what they wanted, at least not anymore. Their identity was wrapped around a title: lawyer, physician, vice president, you name it, whatever it might be. They had concern if their family would have enough money, if they would be able to pay for their children's college, if they would be without insurance if they left. Again, if any of those sound familiar, you're not alone. We all know the insurance system in this country doesn't make it easy for somebody to exist without traditional job and benefits. But I will tell you, as part of what was happening as people were going through this struggle of what to do and what decision to make, is that the stress and tension played out in their bodies. And I'm sure this is something that we all know and are familiar with. We've heard, the body keeps the score, but at the same time, it's easy to negate when you're getting those headaches, those migraines, back tension, sometimes even as dramatic as seizures. You go to the doctor can't find anything wrong. They kind of make you feel like you might be the crazy one, right? All of those things, we've all had them. That's your body and your subconscious saying, wake up, there's something going on here. Listen to me. You're in an internal tug of war. What are you going to do about it? And again, I am not advocating that the right decision is to go. I'm advocating that we need to be gentle with ourselves in this process. We need to gain clarity, and we need to understand what may be servicing and why, and explore what our options are. So before I go into next, I just want to take a moment to ask, if you've ever thought about making a big decision like leaving a career, have you asked others for advice? And if so, what are some of the things that were said to you, helpful or otherwise? Feel free to put that in the chat. I'd love to hear what others might have said if you were seeking advice from them. And Joni, maybe you can even help me read some out loud. For me, it was, the devil you know is better than the one you don't, right? Stay put. The grass is always greener on the other side.
And I find, Monica, that so many people, when you're seeking advice, it's like, oh, don't do that. What are you going to do? And that's going to set you back. Instead of being open and enthusiastic about change, I think people, as you've discussed, are so fearful of change. Others that are listening to a story. So I think it's really interesting for those when you really get support from somebody else. And let's see.
Fear-based reactions for Rika saying.
Yeah, I haven't asked
fun.
for advice, but let's see, sorry.
I love to quickly share, because this was many moons ago when 15 years ago, I transitioned from an engineering career to a dancer career, professional dancing. And when I sought advice at the time, the main thing that was like, how can you give up an engineering salary? Like, you're crazy. And the other one was, I'm too old. people would tell me I was too old to go into a professional dancing career. And that was really hard to hear because everything in my body was saying, I'm not built for this. I am built for that. Well, long story short, I did make the jump and ended up winning many awards in dancing, and I will not change it for the world. So now this is
Oh,
an
Asustina,
Thank you
thank you.
so much for sharing.
Thank
That's
you for
terrific.
sharing. That is terrific. And I think I'm glad you brought that up because especially as women, we can often say, oh, we're too old, right? Ageism is real and the limitations we put on ourselves. And my role model is Julia Childs, who had her first television appearance when she was 50. And if you think about her big career, I mean, that all happened post 50. So I love, combating the messages related to ageism. I also think what's interesting about your example that you shared is that people said they focused on money. If I asked you to prioritize your values between self-health, family, and money, would money be number one?
No,
No.
no.
But
absolutely not. We think
often,
that.
our society and culture leans into money because we have this false belief that money creates security. And I am here to tell you, once you lose your health, money can't bring that back. Money can't bring that
Exactly.
back, right? And I get it. I get we have financial responsibilities. Trust me, I was a sole provider for 2 boys in Southern California, and I couldn't always just make the decision to go. So I'm just challenging you to make sure that you're weighing all the options in the
Different things.
equation, not just money, right? Because money only takes us so far. And there are more options sometimes to earn than we think. It's opening, part of this exercise and work is opening our mind to possibility. Okay. The other thing that I have found with some of the women in the body of research is that when people did choose to make a transition, they were really anxious to move on to what was next. They were a little uncomfortable having space and time. We are conditioned that our value is in our productivity and sometimes even serving others. And so just be aware of those things. If you're considering a transition, is whether you can allow yourself to make space or time. And if that's uncomfortable, why is that? And what is there an invitation for you to learn? Okay, so I want to, at this time, take a moment. How are we doing with time, Joni? Okay, we're doing great with time. And I want to ask you a couple questions that help you gain clarity. And so if you have a minute, you can write these down. We'll send them out afterwards as well. But part of my message here is that others may have well-meaning advice. There are tons of experts and gurus and people all over the place who, want to advise you on a best or right path. And I want to enforce that you know your best or right path. And I don't believe there's really a right or wrong choice, because I don't believe any choice you make is irreversible. For me, I left a company and then I went back and then I left again. I did that twice. If you're a good employee, if you leave on good terms, there are always opportunities for you to go back, if that's what you want to do. And I also want to advocate that everyone has their own personal IP. And what I mean by that is your achievements, your accomplishments, your contributions, those are all yours. They're not the company's. You did that work. You earned that experience. And you get to take that with you wherever you go. It translates. It doesn't just exist because you're in that job or career or profession. So I want to encourage you to think broader. And I think one of the ways to do that is first say, what is it that I really want? And some of the questions I ask myself when I'm a little confused and I'm trying to sort out the noise of what I think are either societal expectations or family expectations or peer expectations, is to sit and get quiet, maybe take a walk with a question or two and ask myself questions like this. I lose track of time when I am. I have endless energy when I am. People tell me my superpower is I feel best when. And the hard one, because I know you're going to say, but time and money is an object, and it might be. But think, if time or money wasn't an object, I would be. Azucena might say dancing, right? What would you be doing? Can you allow yourself the gift of exploration?
Do we take a few minutes here, Monica, to have people write?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Reflect, sit with these questions.
Let's take about 4 minutes.
Also, can we put the questions in the chat? I think maybe not everybody can see this screen.
Everyone should be able to see it. It's up. But we can do that too. Hannah, are you doing that or should I do that?
Ruth is.
Oh, Ruth is wonderful. Thank you. About 1 more minute.
And I would just offer to, if you have any reflections, feel free to add that in the chat or any questions. And again, I recognize this might be better in private, so we'll keep moving. I appreciate your comments, Furbia. So we'll send these out afterwards as well. Sometimes it's nice when it's top of mind just to jot a few things that might come to top of mind, but agree they require deeper exploration. I think for me, it really has been giving myself permission to explore what I want. And that often takes some steps of awareness. So Hannah, I think you can take down the questions now. Thank you. So there are a couple areas where I look for awareness that I want to share with you in case they're helpful. First is the body. I mentioned when something's coming up, reoccurring in my body, not always, but sometimes there's a message. Why am I uncomfortable? Maybe it's I'm growing. Maybe it's I'm shrinking, right? Only I can answer that question, but my body definitely gives me messages. If you're feeling that Sunday night anxiety in your body, there's a message. But again, maybe it's not that you're in the wrong job. Maybe it's that you have an invitation to learn how to use your voice in your work, right? There are many messages that can be coming, but that's one. 2, seeking permission from others. I really had a bad habit of seeking permission from others. I did it in the workplace. I did it in my family of origin. I did it in my relationships. I wanted to be liked. And so I would often seek permission from others before I would make a decision to move on. But after, as with much in life, you live and learn a little bit. And as I started exploring what felt right for me, even if others thought I was crazy, And there were many times when people say, why would you move from there to here? Why would you buy a house there? Why would you take that job? Why would you go back in salary? Why would you go back in title, right? All of those questions when you're doing activities that deviate from the cultural or society norms. It makes people uncomfortable and they're going to ask questions. So I have to ask myself, am I seeking permission from others or from myself or from, my family that matters to me? Whose permission? Who am I crowdsourcing from, right? The third is, where is obligation and responsibility showing up in this decision? This is a tough one. It is, especially right now, I don't underscore the difficult financial landscape that many individuals are in and the impact of the last handful of years and that we still see right now. And I don't want to underscore financial security. I think especially for women, having the ability to earn equals having ability to choice. And I am a huge proponent of women earning. But I also want to just encourage you to think about where obligation and responsibility is showing up. For me, I got to a point where I thought, if I leave this job, I'm not going to be able to pay for my children's college. And I had to explore that. Where did that belief come from that I needed to pay for my children's college? My parents were super supportive of me going to college, but they didn't pay for it. They might have helped me out here or there. But, where did that belief come from that it was my responsibility as a single mother to pay for my children's college? And again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but explore the beliefs that tie you to obligation and responsibilities and keep you from living a life that feels like fulfillment on most days. It's important and it's real. A lot of people, a lot of women are sacrificing self on behalf of others or subscribe to caring for others first. The next one is emotion. So again, body, when do you seek permission? Where does obligation, responsibility lie into the equation? And then finally, emotion, like, how do I feel? And that seems like such an easy question, but it's really not. And so when I try and break apart how I'm feeling, two things I look at. First is fear. Where is fear showing up? What is the worst thing that could happen in this situation? Go a layer deeper. What's the next worst thing? What's the next worst thing, right? Like, get to a point where you have uncovered what lies behind all those fears and how you might overcome them. One thing I would say to myself when I would switch careers and have uncertainty and walk away from money, which was never easy, is I would say to myself, I have always been an earner and provider for my family. That will always be true. That's something I have proved for 20 plus years. That is not going to change just because I change jobs. Anchor that fear in confidence for what you know and believe about yourself to be true. And then the other emotion that I allow myself to play with on the other side of fear is joy. Like, what would abundance and success feel like? What if I left and became XYZ and was wildly successful? How would that feel? Why can't that be an equal possibility to me failing? And if you think about times when you're trying to make an important decision, I don't know if you're like me or not, but it's so much easier to weigh in the points of failure and what could go wrong than the points of what could be abundant and joyful and right. Oh, I love what you wrote, Laura, about wanting to be a travel writer and the logical mind. Let me tell you, I have the ambition to write and struggle at the same time. And so I hear you. And I'm going to say, keep exploring. And if you send your email, if you DM it to either Hannah or Joni, I have a resource I'm going to send you on travel writing, but I'll do that separately. Okay, so keep putting your questions and comments in the chat, and then I'm going to head into transition tips. Let me see what Laura wrote. Laura, leaving my job last year was the best thing I could have done, and I have landed reasonably well. And I still have many of these questions, and I'd love to get those deeper answers. They haven't come yet.
It takes time.
Yeah, you know what? Thank you for just showing up and saying, this is real and it's ongoing, and giving a little bit of grace to yourself in the process. It's not a one and done, and it's really not all or nothing. Like, we have to just allow ourselves tremendous space to experience all of it. And it's kind of like how Carol's on the line. I'll call on Carol, but it's kind of like, Carol, I might have you give a marathon analogy. Like, if you're going to prepare and run for a marathon, you're just not going to make the decision to run for the marathon and then go run the marathon. It takes training and learning. Carol, do you have any insights you want to add to that analogy?
Yeah, that's perfect. It takes time. It takes the thought process, the planning, and then incremental doing the practice every day and showing up and listening to your heart and keep running. So that's a good analogy.
I love that, listening to your heart and showing up. And it's forward steps, backward steps, right? You can get an injury. You might have to slow down. Another great book I recently read is Gentle Power. And I encourage you to read that one as well. And she talks about, having these aspirations and, wanting to get there and accomplish things, but also how she has to be gentle with herself in the process. And I think part of this is just giving ourselves permission to morph and evolve and to let go of the outcome. Like, for me, I had to say, okay, I want to be this big, published, successful author. Well, I might still want that. But right now, what I just want to do is honor my writing practice and find joy in my writing and continue to evolve. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm writing every day. So I'm celebrating that. I'm not published. My website's not done. But you know what? I'm a work in process. I'm a caterpillar. I love being a caterpillar. So find joy. Find joy. That's my big encouragement. Okay. I'm going to go into transition tips and then leave time for questions at the end. Thank you, everyone, for contributing so much amazing content to the chat and for showing up for yourselves and for this community today. It's really powerful when we come together and recognize that we're not alone. So a couple tips. If you decide to make the leap, I just want to ready you for some things that could happen in the process, especially things that might cause you to second guess your choice. People are going to ask you, why are you leaving? And they're going to expect you to give them the Reader's Digest version of a decision that probably took you a long time and a lot of courage to make. And what I'm going to tell you is you are not obligated to come up with an answer that satisfies their curiosity. Can you please remember that? It is not your job to satisfy their curiosity. You don't have to explain. You get to choose your boundaries. You can if you want. It's up to you. But it is not your job to help them feel comfortable. People may get angry. I can't believe the stories of women that told me how people were so angry when they left and made snide comments like, oh, it must be nice to have the money to do X or not have to care about insurance or, whatever that might be. What I can just say is try and avoid the dance of defensiveness in those situations. I love Michelle Obama. When they go low, we go high, just say, yeah, I get it. And move on. And those people are probably never going to understand. And you're probably just going to drive yourself crazy trying to make them understand you. Again, these are things that I do to avoid second guessing myself. If you're going to another career, leaving one job for another, and you're not going to competitor, you're not obligated to disclose where you're going or why. You can choose how much you want to say in an exit interview or to your boss. My last manager was very adamant about me giving him a reason why I was leaving. And I know why, because he was fearful that I was probably going to report a lot of harassment that I endured at that company. And instead, I just let him be uncomfortable and would not give him a reason. And, you know, again, it's all people are typically thinking of themselves when they're asking you. So just keep that in mind. I also chose a statement that I made that I just repeated over and over. Mine was, I've had a rewarding career and I'm uncertain about what's next, but I'm excited to explore it. And that's all I would say. Because again, I know there are people on the phone that can relate to this, Kate, not to call you out, but we're saying, why would you leave that? And you don't even know what you're going to do, right? Like your daily job is saving lives. Like, come on, really? So again, you can just say, I'm not sure what's next, but I'm excited to explore. Whatever works for you, pick a statement and anchor on it. Then make a list of your accomplishments. I spoke about this earlier. These are traits that are true to you. They will be true whether or not you are in this job or career or wherever you show up. Like, just hone in and celebrate all the things that make you uniquely you, because I know each of you has really spectacular traits. Join a new activity or community, or practice something you've always wanted to, like Joni, floral arrangements. I love that. Art, macrame, you know, whatever it might be, like lean into something that's new, become a learner. There's no better way to gain confidence and build your ability that, hey, I can reinvent, like I am capable, no matter what my age or my circumstances. And then tip number 7, my favorite, practice exquisite self-care, whether that's journaling, yoga, meditation, walks, hanging out with friends, community, reading. I don't know what it is for you, but understand what fuels your soul, what lights you up, what gives you energy when you need to recuperate. Maybe it's a nap. Like, exquisite self-care is really important. It's not always just about the hustle.
I think it's so important to remember, Monica, that life is just a series of reinvention. And I was just with a friend recently. She's 77. She's had many reinventions in her life. And she just had her first art show in a gallery. And she's 77 years old. So it's just we're a series of reinventions and evolution. And it's such a beautiful reminder that you're never too old to do anything. And my flower arranging and wreath making has been amazing. And I'm 58 and I do that on the side. So it's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. And I love that. And Laura, I want to touch on what you said about the friend who said, you know, must be nice to have your partner cover your bills. You know, my fear of people saying that is one of the things that has held me back from showing up and having these conversations. What if I hadn't been willing to show up and have this conversation today because I let that fear hold me back, right? And so there are always going to be trolls. There's always going to be the naysayers. There are always going to be the people that haven't done their work that are going to project on you. But I think if you can ground into some of these tips and just be aware, doesn't mean it's not going to hurt, but there is a way to come back home to you, because this work is about coming back home to yourself. We deserve that. I'm going to have a few closing thoughts and then questions. And Joni, questions, I know you have a few. So my closing thoughts are this about making a career transition, or really any transition, is it is okay to feel torn. It is okay to wonder about the sense of responsibility you have to others. And it is okay to put your needs first. Quiet the voices in your head. Get clear on what you want. Trust your intuition and your body. You have the answers. What the women I interviewed want you to know: trust your next chapter. Slow down. Take time to celebrate. You don't have to have it all figured out before you leap. It's never all or nothing. there's always a way. Thank you.
Monica, that was just absolutely terrific. And I know everybody's taking so many notes and just really listening to these messages and tips from Monica. And I really appreciate that how much transition that you've gone through in your life, and you're taking this to more women so that they have the opportunity and confidence to step into that next new chapter, which is just lovely. Thank you so much. Are there any questions in the audience? Just wanted to see if we had any.
I love that we are taking a friend break. That's so great.
Yeah, good job, Laura. And I do want to address something that Laura said, which I think is so important about women and age, that we think about age much more than men do, I think. And age is just a number. And you can start like my friend at 77 and have her first gallery show, or whether you're 90. Actually, a friend of mine, Roseanne Cohn, who was a mentor of mine, she just updated her book, and she's 90 now, or 87, and it just got published. So life is an open book that you can always step into at any time in your life. And says, thank you so much. I knew that I'm not alone, and this conversation helps me to feel more courageous. And I love that word. So Monica, let's just go back to my opening about spirit for your adventure and what RevelEleven is all about. I want to take a few minutes to find out what fuels your spirit. So how do you find adventure in everyday life?
Well, writing definitely fuels my spirit, and I'm a fan of Morning Pages, Julia Cameron. So I definitely start my day writing, and I can tell if I have a skip day that I haven't gotten my neurosis out on the page in the morning. So
you feel guilty.
So no, it's just more that,
grace.
the energy that comes. And then I would also add, I'm a huge fan of dog therapy. I love having dogs, and they fuel my spirit with their abundant energy and joy every single day.
And we definitely share that. And what adventures are you pursuing the rest of the year?
We over the last few years have not traveled, and we're getting back to travel, which is exciting. We have a few trips planned, and definitely plan to enjoy some time in the sun in Seattle, the summer, and the water. And then in addition, I'm really the big adventure for me, and I have an ally on the phone in Tisha helping, is I'm going to push my website out in the next 30 days, and that's been about 10 years in the procrastination. So that's going to feel like an adventure.
That is terrific. I remember Brene Brown saying that she wanted to do a podcast, and about 10 years later, she did that, and look at the doors that opened for her with that podcast.
That's encouraging. Thank you.
Yes. And what types of adventures call to your spirit, Monica?
Well, I definitely find energy in community. So conversations like this, I feel like, is an adventure in my spirit, because I'm connecting with others. I'm remembering I'm not alone, and that showing up for myself matters, and showing up for each other matters. And I also think for me, I do enjoy travel or day trips with friends. I think as much as we love our families, and if we have spouses, love our spouses, I think there is something about friendship or just meeting other women and being in community with other women that for me really fuels my spirit and sense of adventure. And so I'm definitely going to be partaking in some of the upcoming events with RevelEleven. It's a great place for me to meet like-minded individuals, as well as curating some of my own circles to enjoy.
I love that so much, Monica. And it means so much to me to have this community, and for Monica to share her amazing wisdom with us today. And thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Love you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Yes,
Feel
thank
free
you
to
for
message
joining.
us with any questions that you might have after the fact. I'll send out an email. RevelEleven will send out an email with my contact information, and you're free to send me an email with questions, because as I continue this body of work, your questions and spending time understanding what matters to you also helps fuel my research on this topic. So thank you very much.
Thank you.